If you listen to the critics, if you listen to your own doubts and call them reasons, you may never find the drive to go back to school. But a little change in direction, a new perspective, and the right program may make your successful new path a reality. The Accelerated Degree Program at Albright College. Start your degree or complete your degree one night a week in as little as 2 years. Albright College. A different way of thinking.
Good evening, and welcome to the Albright Scholar for June 2017. My name is John Pankratz. I teach history at Albright, and each month it's my privilege to welcome BCTV viewers and residents of Greater Reading to take a glimpse inside our learning community up here on North 13th Street, to look at the work being done by teachers and students, and to think about its impact on all of us. Well, it's June, and I know you're thinking summer vacation. But that's not the case. For a number of Albright students and Albright faculty members, this is a very busy time of intense intellectual and creative effort. Summer Acres, the Albright creative and research experiences are ongoing. And over the next 3 months, I'll welcome various teams of teachers and students to come in and talk about the work that they're doing in a whole variety of fields. In the future, we might be hearing about vibrational spectroscopy, for example, or bis-guanidine pyridine ligands, or chemical reactivity, or oxidation mechanisms. A whole series of fascinating topics in which emotions and intentions and choices and character don't really matter. But tonight we're talking about the theater, where emotions and intentions, at least traditionally, have mattered a great deal. But I have with me 4 scholars who are asking the question, are we at a moment, or are we encountering kinds of theater in which those traditional determinants of dramatic action are no longer as applicable as they were? Are we in a post-dramatic moment? And we're going to find out with 4 of my really closest friends at Albright. On my left is Connor McLaughlin, a rising junior theater major at Albright. Next to him is Natalie Torpy, another rising junior and star of our theater program. Next to her is Cocole Bernal, my wife, and an artist in residence in the theater department at Albright. And then senior artist in residence, Jeffrey Lentz, an Albright grad and artist in both the theater and the music department. So, hey folks, welcome. It's great to see you here. Let me ask Connor and Natalie first, why would students faced with a glorious summer ahead spend their time working hard, working even more intensively than you do during the school year on one of these acres?
It's the time to do it. I'm young and I'm in my undergraduate career right now, and who knows when I won't have the time in the future and when my schedule's too busy to concentrate for 6 hours on something that I really care about. So I think right now is the prime time to do it, and especially summer. It's a great working style for me because I can focus on one thing and let that one thing completely consume me.
Yeah.
And actually, this project has led me to find other interests, right? So I'm focused on theater right now, but focusing on an expression, focusing on an art actually pulls you in other directions. So I became really focused, I became really interested in visual art. So I come over here to Cocole, and now we've established some informal painting lessons. So the summer is the time to be learning when the pressure's off, and I think my best kind of learning works, especially when the sun's out all the time and you're not in the dark. So So the summer is prime time for learning.
You're free to explore those tangents rather than having another class or another obligation that you
Right.
have to attend to.
Right.
Connor, what about you?
A lot of grand points are brought up, especially one of the things about focus and being able to just nail one thing in. I think a lot of times what we don't see is that really pinpoint accuracy on our scholarship and doing that study. And I think the ACRE program that we have really aids us in learning what it is to focus in one field for an extended point of time, and really helps us develop as scholars and as people too, understanding what it means to schedule our own schedule.
Yeah.
So
So to pursue something with real depth and just go as far as you possibly can into it. Jeff, what about from the teacher's point of view? You've done a number of ACREs. I've done them in the past as well. What's the motivation? What's the...
Well, all of the above, because what's true for the students is also true for faculty as well, and having to share your time in a lot of different areas at once, multitasking, so to speak.
Yeah.
I think for me, and I'm sure I speak for you too, John, when I say this, that when you have such wonderful students like Connor and Natalie who step into your office and say, we have a question. We have something we want to explore. This is very passionate to us. We've got questions, and we want you to help us explore these questions. Do you have a mutual interest in this? And of course, this idea of where are we in terms of narrative theater, sort of traditional theater, is it a dying art form? Is it a morphing art form? Where are these multiple audiences for different kinds of theater? This is something we think about all the time. We think about it in terms of writing. We think about it in terms of delivery systems and audiences, audience configurations. So it's and this is something that Cole and I, in a sense, is at the very center of what we do when we create a production. To whom are we speaking? How are we going to speak to them? And what is it that what residue, what resonance do you want to have? Are you hoping that you have with a gathered audience? Most of the time that means in a room, in a dark box room where people politely sit and watch the show that you've created for them. But there's a lot of theater going on out there that transcends that paradigm. So when Connor and Natalie came to me, I said, "This is great. Particularly because, and I'll let you guys talk about this further. At least the jumping off point for us was, how do young actors who are cast in this kind of material out in the working world, how do they prepare themselves to work for in a method and in material that sort of flies in the face of what we traditionally teach as acting theory, which is sort of the actor stepping into the mask or the costume of someone else and telling their story. But when that doesn't happen, when you have more abstract texts, what are different ways that we could prepare ourselves better? And that's a profound question, huge question for me as an artist and as a teacher of acting. And so I said, let's do it.
This is a
Let's
perfect
jump in.
encounter. And it often works that way, that I've had students come to me with a question they're passionately interested in and say, would you want to pursue this with me? And very often I've said yes. And there have been other occasions where I've had an idea. I know in the sciences people have sort of ongoing projects and say, there's a new aspect of this. Would you like to be part of a team doing research in that area? So it has to be a meeting of minds, but the initial energy can come from a couple different places.
And of course, this is the summertime is often the time when Cole and I are in a little crucible thinking about what it is that we're going to create and how we create, and so the timing is
coming year.
perfect.
Yeah.
So to have a much larger conversation going on and having this sort of these readings and intellectual conversations in the mornings that then spark our creativity in the afternoon as we're working with models and working with ideas, it's just fantastic.
Yeah. Hooray for summer.
Yeah.
Now, Connor and Natalie, you've already appeared you've appeared in a number of plays together, but one that is really on that borderline of a post-dramatic theater, Sarah Kane's 448 Psychosis, in which the characters weren't really named, and you weren't really supposed to develop a narrative that flowed through. Did some of your interest in this topic grow out of your experience acting in that play?
Yeah, I would say definitely. I know that Sarah Kane had her in-your-face kind of theater, and this, although for us it was, when you first get the text in its barest form, it is words and or numbers on a page, whether repeated in a similar fashion, but only divided by just dashes in between each, what we can only discern as a scene.
So nothing like named characters, now you say this, now you say that?
No blocking in per se that one might see, like how to say a line, maybe you may see.
Looks more like a poem more than anything.
Mm-hmm. And so we were, from seeing this work, it was interesting to wonder how would we go about acting methods. So we have some kind of tools that we usually have, like the Stanislavski method, where we are supposed to find intention, but necessarily what is an intention for a jumble of numbers?
Right. Right.
There are lots of acting theories and philosophies, but those are based around the works of the time, right? So, as a contemporary actor, when I'm approaching a script, say, an Ibsen play, it's very different from approaching something that's more contemporary and a little whack. I think that what we're really interested in this acre is really, I mean, the question is, how does a contemporary actor approach an abstract piece? But we're finding ourselves hyper-focused on the audience, right? What does the audience need for the actor, or from the actor? And what tools can the actor give an audience to access that world, right? So a lot of our work, what I thought it would be, was going to stay behind the proscenium line, but it's not, right? It's stepping outside of that, and not only outside of that, but outside of the theater as well. So this project, which I thought would be a lot of technique work and vocabulary work, history-based work, is actually becoming an incredibly profound philosophical job for all of us, right? And looking.
What are the existential terms of theater as a whole?
Right, and it's difficult to determine those things, whereas a scientist can go back to terminology and say, okay, this is clear for me, this is that. But theater is that kind of thing where even when looking at traditional types of theater, it can always be there can always be like an argument against it, where everything's gray. So we sort of have to determine, okay, what's our foundation for working on this project? So Jeff was sort of explaining the acre earlier. We all had dinner together, so we were talking about the acre, and he said, we thought that this project was going to be point A, point B, walk the line to your destination, right? But it's not. Yeah. It's becoming, point A, we have to go back. We have to collect our artifacts, and then we can start at the beginning and move forward. And even so, it's becoming a little curvier than I thought.
Point C and T.
Right.
Well, and trying to appreciate a football game as a theatrical experience, a wedding as a theatrical experience, and also in the more the philosophical side, and we talk about this all the time. When you take away the character, when you take away the plot, and you just have this direct connection between a performer and the audience, what is that relationship like, and where does it transcend the character that they're playing? There are times that we believe in the theater that audiences want to be there and they want to receive a story, and so they set aside their disbelief and they believe that Natalie and Connor are two characters in a play. But there are those moments when, I don't care if you don't even know who they are as people, you marvel at what they are actually doing outside the narrative. And these kinds of philosophies that we're looking at,
look at that performance,
are giving credence and real weight to that experience, just at the most base level, two people sharing a story together in any situation. at a gathered time and in a gathered place. So it's
In part, it's both an effort to empower the audience and prepare the audience to receive a certain kind of performance, but also frustrate their expectations. Because if they're coming hoping to see Oklahoma, then they might not be able to deal with 448 psychosis.
Right.
Well, and I think that's where I really love how Kukol adds into this, because she always provides this beautiful artistic framework around the pieces that we do that do challenge audiences. So that's for you to talk about.
Well, yes, I think that's my inclusion here, is to see it from an artist's point of view.
Yeah.
And so there are questions about how the space helps a play, or can hinder it, or furthers the plot of the play.
And you created this marvelous white canvas for
448, yes.
as well, in which
yes.
they found themselves
Yes,
stranded, mired.
yes, completely surrounded by whiteness.
We're using visual art a lot, metaphorically, saying, so if once you're no longer talking about figurative art, once it's no longer a bowl of fruit or a portrait, but an abstract blotch of paint on a canvas intentionally done, that's very similar to the kind of canvas they were looking at for 448 psychosis. It doesn't seem to add up to anything, but you still have to appreciate it, you still have to approach it, and deliver it. And so I think it's been great, and I was so thrilled to hear that you guys were doing the artwork as well, because it
Right.
feeds everything.
Oh,
we're
that's
doing.
been
No, it's been so
yes.
much fun. Well, and also what we talked about is audiences sort of are trained to walk into a theater and approach the work with this literary vocabulary, right? So when we experience theater, we're experiencing the life of characters. We're experiencing reality that's reflected in art. But I see Kukol's work, or we're looking at sort of movements in visual art, and we're saying, okay, well, what's happening to the technique here? And we're talking in ways that don't have to do with character, or plot, or anything, but it's still an experience, right? And so I'm looking at theater, I'm
Yes.
looking at art, and I'm
Yes.
saying, what if we can use a similar vocabulary for both? What if we can use a vocabulary that we use to see line and form and shape, but only parallel to the human body and the voice, right?
Well, there's also this relationship between art and theater. That art starts at the beginning with discovering new ways of tell stories in canvas or abstract art, and then theater comes along, music come along after art has already done it. That's been done in paint. So it is always a way to see what's going to come next in other music, don't you think?
Well, yeah, and that's actually one of the first places that we started. We thought to ourselves, what if we borrowed some of the vocabulary from the visual art world, or from the music field, or from film, theories of montage, and applied some of that vocabulary to acting in more abstract work. Maybe thinking about line and form and texture and these sorts of things, or rhythm or harmony, might be a better touchstone than the intention or objective of to cajole, to focus, to offer solace or suffering. These sorts of things that come with a sort of more human behavioral approach, psychological approach to the sort of stimulus response that happens in any conversation. Everything I say stimulates something from you, and back and forth. But when that kind of dialogue doesn't exist, why do we have to be locked in to the vocabulary that we've always used? This is the time to try out these sorts of things, which I think we will get to in the next couple of weeks. Sort of, get off our feet and try some of this.
I think
stuff.
we're probably obliged to depart from those
I would think
traditional
so,
approaches.
sure,
I mean, I find myself thinking of Schoenberg and abandoning tonal music and going to 12 tone and all the other gestures in all the art forms towards this sort of postmodern moment that we're in which human character is decentered right? We're no longer in that Copernican or pre-Copernican position of the center of things. We're off to the side. We're tangential very often, and the universe is operating on its own terms,
Yeah,
whatever
and-
those might be.
And if you look at a lot of, even in film, or I should say, in mediums where stories are happening, there haven't really been that many changes in the stories themselves. It's been in the delivery of those stories,
Yeah.
right? And you think about film, getting to the point like, Game of Thrones and, Lord of the Rings, these sorts of epic kinds of canvases on which these stories are told. What changes is seeing it in 3D, seeing it in Sensurround, seeing it virtually.
Right.
It's changing the method through which we get the stories. This is looking at when we sort of take away these major stories
Yeah.
and say, how can there still be value for an audience in this kind of experience? The way that I think audiences had to be taught, I suppose, to appreciate abstract expressionism.
I think it
or
is.
atonal, or Schoenberg,
Or
atonal
To
music.
the extent that they do.
Yeah, right.
Yeah. Well, I should say that people will get to see a play when the summer is over. You're preparing, it's a fairly new play, right?
Right. Constellations by Nick Payne. Going up August 27th.
Yeah,
And-
that's going to be for our freshman class that comes
Right.
in. It's going to be their first experience, Albright experience event. So we'll perform this for for a captive group of incoming freshmen, and then on Sunday, September the 3rd, as a matinee, as part of a celebration of 15 years of Albright Theater Department, and inviting a lot of alumni to come back and help us have a long weekend conversation about where we were, where we are, and where we need to be, sort of framed by the idea of the stars and the constellations. This particular play is set in a sort of multi-universe
Right.
paradigm, so this relationship is not exactly abstract, it's shattered. So
Right.
you just see bits and pieces of what could have happened if this love story happened in this universe, or that universe, or this universe.
And are
It's
these
all
the
been-
same people? Well, maybe not.
Maybe
they're
not, right?
yeah.
Maybe, and so that's the game for the audience to get a hold of, and so we're going to have to be prepared to help the audience prepare themselves for that kind of experience, where it's not A, B, C, D, E, but it's going to
Right.
jump all over the place.
And that whole work that you sometimes do of creating a backstory for your character so you know what they would have done. Yeah, that's the play specifically breaks that apart.
Well, you were talking about that, Connor, at the beginning. you know.
Right. So in the play, I guess one approach you could have on it is that, well, it also stems from what your definition of a character is. Well, a person, our traits. Are we made up of the world around us, or are we made up of the choices we make? And kind of similar to the butterfly effect, that if one thing changed, are we a different character at that point? Are we completely different, or are we minutely different? What varying degrees does it happen to everything? And so one approach is to say that each of them have a specific and different background, or they have similar backgrounds, and just one thing changed throughout it. So it could, how
So
many-
is it a hall of mirrors? Is it a matrix? How do we find a way to help ourselves through from moment to moment, as an audience will be led with the way that it's produced to know when they're in a different audience or a different universe. So that's the sort of theatrical trick of the show. But what a great experiment for these two wonderful young performers to be in a multi-universe play, dealing with questions of love and memory and the cosmos as a sort of final project for this semester of inquiry, philosophical inquiry.
Yeah. What a great welcome to the freshmen as well.
Yeah, we hope.
When they come in. Do you think there'll be other products? Can you imagine going off to a KCAC-TF convention and giving a workshop, perhaps, in an actor
Yes.
prepared, an actor prepared in the post-traumatic world?
Yeah, that sounds like a great idea.
Yeah.
Thanks, John.
Come mention it. Come mention it. Great. Well, there's lots to look forward to, and I'll look forward to more dinners and more conversations and more meetings with all of you. And I'll look forward to learning about bisguanidine pyridine ligands as well in a future episode. And I'll look forward to welcoming you as well in another month to another edition of the Albright Scholar. Thank you. Good night.
If you listen to the critics, if you listen to your own doubts and call them reasons, you may never find the drive to go back to school. But a little change in direction, a new perspective, and the right program may make your successful new path a reality. The Accelerated Degree Program at Albright College. Start your degree or complete your degree one night a week in as little as 2 years. Albright College, a different way of thinking.